When people hear about peptides around surgery, the fear usually isn't about safety. It's about the feeling that if they don't decide right now, they might permanently fall behind in the recovery. That pressure, quiet, subtle, is very real and can turn uncertainty into urgency. Hi, I'm Dr. Dan, orthopedic surgeon, and I've helped thousands of people recover from shoulder injury and shoulder surgery. I make these videos to give people clear, honest guidance when recovery feels confusing or stressful. This conversation usually starts quietly. Someone hears about peptides from a friend, a podcast, or online group. At first, it's just curiosity. They think, that's interesting. I'll look into it later. But then the questions start stacking up. What if this speeds healing? What if others are doing this and recovering faster? What if waiting means I miss my window? And suddenly, very reasonable people feel like they're standing at a fork in the road, where choosing wrong could cost them time, progress, or peace of mind. What stands out to me isn't fear of peptides themselves, it's weighing the decision, the sense that I'm not acting might be the same as falling behind. If you're preparing for shoulder surgery and trying to reduce uncertainty, not add to it, I do have a free resource, the Pre-Op Shoulder Surgery Checklist. It's in the link below. It helps you focus on the decisions that actually matter before and after surgery. In a moment, I'll share how I frame peptides when people ask me. So most surgeons don't have the time or frankly the desire to deep dive areas that sit outside standard surgical care. So I'm going to keep this simple and grounded. What we can say with confidence, what's still unclear, and why urgency is usually the wrong way to make this kind of decision. That shift alone tends to take a lot of pressure off. Recovery creates what I think of as a vulnerability gap. You're healing, you're waiting, and for a while you don't feel fully in control yet. During that phase, anything that promises acceleration naturally grabs attention. Peptides sit right in that gray zone. There's some very interesting biology, some positive laboratory and animal data, a lot of confident language, and very limited high-quality human outcome data. When clarity is incomplete, urgency tends to rush in and fill the gaps. That's not manipulation, it's human behavior. Our brains are uncomfortable with uncertainty. When something suggests momentum, faster healing, getting ahead, not wasting time, it feels safer to act than to wait. The pressure doesn't come from carelessness, it comes from wanting to protect the outcome. If you ever felt pressure to make a quick decision during recovery about peptides or anything else, type pressure in the comments below. Here's the mental model I use. I separate what is biologically interesting from what meaningful changes to outcome. Those two categories sometimes overlap, but not always. A lot of peptide discussion, including around BP 157, lives in the first category. That doesn't make it useless, it doesn't make it wrong, and it doesn't mean it will never have a role. It means the evidence we have is limited in a very specific way. Most of the positive data people reference come from animal models, most often in rats. In those settings, compounds like BPC 157 appear to influence tissue repair pathways. That's real laboratory science, and it's reasonable to find it interesting. What we don't have are large, well-controlled human trials showing improved surgical recovery outcomes. And there's an important structural reason for that. These compounds don't fit neatly into the pharmaceutical model. They're considered orphan-type substances, meaning there's little financial incentive for large companies to fund expensive human trials. Universities typically rely on grant funding or industry backing to study treatments at that scale. And neither pathway is very well aligned here. So the uncertainty may persist, not because people aren't curious, but because the system that produces definitive answers isn't set up to study this well. There's another layer that deserves thoughtful consideration, especially when we get older. In laboratory settings, BPC 157 has been shown to be angiogenic and to promote cell proliferation. Those mechanisms can be helpful for tissue repair, but they're also the same biological process tumor cells rely on. That doesn't mean harm has been shown in humans. It doesn't mean people are causing cancer by taking peptides. No, It means that in adults in their 50s and 60s and 70s, where the likelihood of unknown silent malignancies increase, this theoretical risk becomes part of the uncertainty that hasn't been adequately studied. There's also a regulatory piece that adds to this lack of clarity. In late 2023, the FDA placed BPC 157 on its Category 2 list for bulk drug substances. That designation reflects unresolved safety and quality concerns, including the lack of standardized purity. Practically speaking, that means compounding pharmacies are not permitted to compound it. So when people access BPC 157, it's typically outside traditional pharmacy channels. Immunogenicity is an important concept here. It refers to the possibility that the body could recognize a compound as foreign and mount an immune response. That risk hasn't been adequately studied or ruled out for BPC 157, especially given the variability in preparation and sourcing. This uncertainty isn't unique to the US. There are very limited high-quality human research coming out of Europe either. Despite occasional claims online, there isn't a robust body of European surgical outcome data either. Globally, the evidence remains sparse. And finally, even setting biology and regulations aside, there's one practical issue of sourcing. These compounds are often sold as research products. Dosing, purity, and preparations can vary widely. When people talk about sourcing from overseas or labs, it's often unclear what that actually guarantees. So even if someone wanted to use these thoughtfully, there's often no reliable way to confirm the dose, the consistency, or the activity of what they're receiving. From a recovery standpoint, that uncertainty matters. From a surgical perspective, the biggest driver of recovery remains very consistent. The quality of the repair, the tissue healing time, protection during the early phase, appropriate rehabilitation progression, avoiding overload while tissues are vulnerable. Those factors matter far more than add-ons chosen under pressure. Most recoveries do not hinge on a narrow decision window, and when something truly is time-sensitive, surgeons are usually very clear about it. If urgency isn't coming from your surgeon or your recovery plan, it's reasonable to pause and ask where that pressure is actually coming from. Inside my shoulder recovery method, the emphasis is always on decision clarity, helping people understand what truly influences recovery versus what simply adds noise. Keeps decisions steady instead of reactive. Calm understanding is usually protective. So if you're feeling stuck because you think you have to decide right now, take a breath. Uncertainty doesn't mean you're falling behind. It usually means the information isn't settled yet. Good recovery decisions tend to reduce pressure, not increase it. And most of the time, choosing calm understanding over urgency leads to better outcomes, both physically and mentally. You don't need to rush to protect your recovery. You need to understand it. If peptides came up because recovery already feels slower than expected, the next video to watch is why recovery feels so slow after rotator cuff repair. Check it out. It's in the link below. It puts the timeline into perspectives and helps reset expectations in a grounded, realistic way. Thank you, family. Hope this helps. Have a great week. We'll see you next Thursday.